There's an invisible microphone right there. Here it comes. Okay. Ready to roll. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to... is there a reason the lights are on? Do you want them on? You need them for that. Okay, gotcha. Thank you. We're going to hear from the audience now. If you have a question, you need to get actually in line. And the line forms all the way back to the wall. Again, if you could be brief and concise, we'd glad to entertain your question. Yes, sir, you're first.
Okay. My question for Mr. Mohamed. I'm from the Middle East. I lived in a Muslim country in my life. And I hear what you told today. I heard it many times. And I hear that Islam gave the freedom to any other religion to worship whatever they want to worship, Jews and Christian. And where I come from, the Middle East, a Muslim country, this is not happening. That's number one. Number two here, my question. I'm going to come to my question.
Thank you.
You said the Islam gave the freedom to people to worship. But that's what you say personally, but the Quran says something different. I have 109 verses. If you give me the time, I can say it all with reference. It tells you, kill the people who disagree with you. And I'm going to give references. I give 2 verses only. I'm not going to give 109.
Oh, we trust that there. We trust you.
Surah 9:29. It gives you 5 those who believe not in Allah, nor the last day, nor hold that forbidden which has been forbidden by Allah and His apostle, nor acknowledge the religion of truth of a people of the book. And He give exception to people of the book, they can pay this jizya under the rule of Islam. The second verse is Surah 9:5. Fight and slay the pagan. My question is, can you give me a reference? I don't want your opinion. I'm not interested in your opinion. Reference from the Quran, and I can go back to it and I read it. Till that the Quran teach that people can worship free in other religion in the Islamic State.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
My question is, an Anglo-Saxon.
Thank you for your eagerness, sir. I promise we'll get to you.
All right. For my own brother, David, I would refer you to the same verses, but please read what's before them and what's after them. Don't cut and paste, please. That's number one. Second, no compulsion of religion. It's very clear. Surah 2, verses 257. Okay? Go to that and read it. And I'm sorry if your country did not exercise the Islamic way of treating the people of the book. I came from a country where the Christians about 15% of the population. Although Syria is not a Muslim country, by the way. Syria has majority of Muslim citizens. We have a secular system. We live next door to each other. We marry from each other. I am a Muslim too, who happened to marry a Christian woman here in the United States. That's number one. We have no compulsion in the religion whatsoever. In Syria, till today, the people of Syria are the most proud of the best prime minister we ever had in our history, Mr. Faris al-Khoury. Ask your dad, they'll tell you how wonderful man that man was.
When he was in prison, you mean?
No.
When my dad was in prison? Or which part of my dad's history do you want
Ask
to
him. No. I'm talking about when your dad was in Syria in the late 40s, early 50s. Ask him about Faris al-Khoury, and he'll tell you Faris al-Khoury. Now, back to those who are saying Muslims commit suicide. I'll tell you, the first suicide bomber ever in the history of the Arab world, modern Arab world. A man or a captain in the Navy, Syrian Navy, named Jewel Jamal.
I'm not sure that's part of the question.
Well, no, I want
Is it part of your answer?
part of that.
Okay, I need you to be quick. We got a long line. Your answer to the gentleman's question about the verses.
I refer him to the same verses he quoted.
Yes.
So read what's before and what's after. And if you are not satisfied, next Saturday, come to the regional library here in Naples, and we'll discuss it some more.
So
If
let
you
me
cannot
get
understand.
some clarity on that point. What you're saying is when he reads the verses before it and after it, we will understand the
Absolutely.
context of
Exactly.
those words about slaying.
Exactly.
Okay.
Don't take it
That's
out
very
of context,
reassuring.
because we have this done.
Dr. Jasser, I
Yeah.
want to comment on the same question from the gentleman, and you're next.
I mean, let me take a stab at it, Mohamed. First of all, before and after may clarify a little bit, but the bottom line is the Quran is not an order of history. It's an anthology from longest to shortest verse. So actually, that passage, which some have referred to as the passage of the sword, actually talks about a treaty that was violated, the Hudaybiyah Treaty, that basically gave, after one of the last passages, after God, we believe, had given the message to the Prophet and talked about peace and talked about compassion and rights for all those of all faiths. He then said, if you have to defend yourselves, and if people break a treaty and they violate that treaty, you may fight them, and if you do, fight them where you find them. And this is not corrupt, this is not immoral, this has to do with what all religions believe, which is we have a right to defend ourselves, we have a right to just war. If our troops today are told, kill Al-Qaeda where you find them, I don't think that that's immoral. So similarly, that passage told Muslims, at the time, the division of society was Muslim, pagan, Jewish, etc. It was divided by religion. So when the pagans declared war, it was as if the nation state of the pagan tribe had declared war. So that cannot be extrapolated from 630 AD into 21st century. So there is a way for a modern Muslim to interpret that passage in a non-violent way. But it saddens me to hear a Muslim use the Syrian government, which is one of the most corrupt dictatorships that have existed since the Hitler regime, as an example of a prime minister that is somebody who is that would provide
That
freedom and
minister
liberty.
was elected by the people, sir. That's why
Elected.
Syria has democracy and has a
Oh, that's right. That's right. Assad does win by 99% of the
Before
election.
Assad was even born. Before Assad was even born. He was not
Let me,
prime minister.
thank you. The Syria topic is next week.
Something I don't
Gentlemen,
understand.
yes,
This
sir.
question is for either of you or both of you.
Thank you.
If Christians and Jews and Muslims are all children of the book, it's hard for me to understand as a Caucasian Christian why there's so much hatred. Why are you killing us? And why is it that we can't solve the differences with compromises and discussions? And why does there have to be the hatred?
Thank you, sir. That's why we're here tonight. Jasser, and then-
The collective you that you use there, I take umbrage at. I think that the victim of most terrorism in the world done by Muslims are other Muslims. Those are the victims of terror. And certainly the West has been victimized by terror, no doubt, from 9/11, even before 9/11, from the hostage crisis in '79, and even Munich before that. But the bottom line is that pales in comparison to the victims, the Muslim victims, the moderate Muslims that are fighting to do that. And what we need is a bigger movement so that there's so many of us fighting that they can't kill us all. And this is what needs to happen for all of you to feel more comfortable that you aren't the only ones in this fight. But in fact, modern Muslims are first in line, in the front lines as far as the American Islamic Forum is concerned.
Yes, sir.
Again, to answer that question, the Quran instructs us clearly how we should live on this earth as Muslims, as faithful Muslims, and I'm sure Dr. Jasser will agree with that because we cannot argue with the Quran. إِنَّا خَلَقْنَاكُم مِّن ذَكَرٍ وَأُنثَىٰ وَجَعَلْنَاكُمْ شُعُوبًا وَقَبَائِلَ لِتَعَارَفُوا.
Well, I didn't understand a word.
I will explain. So he knows where I'm coming from. He cannot argue with God. God said, we created you, men and women, in different tribes and different nations. He did not even specify a religion. Every human being, the Muslim is ordered to cooperate with, regardless of his religion or his race or his color. This is the way Islam teaches people. It is built in Islam. But as I said before, we have a problem within the Muslim world. I said we don't disagree with them. We agree we have a problem. Some people hijacked some concepts of Islam and interpreted that or those concepts according to their mentality and understanding. We Muslims are working toward getting rid of these people or at least their ideology, and correct them. This is nothing new to Islam, by the way. What's happening
Last
here
I checked,
has
though,
been
most
going
of the
on for at least 1,300 years.
Last I checked, though, most of the troops that are getting rid of these people are non-Muslims. And it's time for a Muslim to join that military effort to get rid of these people.
Yes, sir, you're next.
Thank you. The Wahhabis have established hundreds of schools around the world, in fact, possibly even in the thousands. And many of these schools, possibly even most, are teaching a radical form of Islam. So I've understood. Is this something we should be concerned about in this country?
We should be concerned about any radical group, no matter who they are, Wahhabi, Sunni, Shi'i, whoever they are, when they become radicals, absolutely we have to be concerned. Many Muslims are concerned with that. But who are the Wahhabis? Do you know who the Wahhabis are and how they were created?
Yes.
And how, who supports the king and the kingdom of Saudi Arabia? And who encourages the Wahhabis who protect the system of Saudi Arabia?
Yes, we understand.
I hope you understand.
Okay, so let's all go home. It's not a Muslim problem. It's just the oil money that's doing it. The bottom line is these are Muslims that are doing it.
Time out. It's not a problem of Saudi textbooks. It's a problem of oil. Is that right?
Well, let me give you an example of the textbook.
Please.
Absolutely. Who were in the last screening of the film, Obsession. They put on the screen, a screen. It says, here is a text taken from a school book taught to Jordanian and Palestinian children. And it says, the Muslim jihadist fighters will rule the world and Islam will rule the world. This is basically the translation. I'm rephrasing. And they put the Arabic screen, which is you can read so easy. And there is nothing in that screen about religion, about Islam or jihadist fighters. Actually, it is about discrimination, about racism, define it, and give examples of it. This is one of the lies. They tell you that there are books to teach people how to hate, and they bring you an example, and they put you there because you cannot read the Arabic, you believe the translation. We have the movie, you have the movie, and we'll be more than happy to challenge anybody to the accuracy of that.
Imam, if you've watched Hamas TV, you will see a Mickey Mouse that cites so-called hadith where it says, for example, the Prophet said, which I don't believe he said, but supposedly there's a hadith that says, kill the Jew behind every stone wherever you may find him. Do you believe that's a genuine hadith or not?
Some hadith, for your information, were fabricated of the Prophet.
Excellent.
Some hadiths were doubted, and some hadiths are authentic.
Well, Imam, this is the problem with Wahhabism. It takes fabricated hadith. It takes things that are not Islam and is a new invention in the late 18th century.
I didn't judge that.
The whole thing is a bid'ah, as we say. The whole thing of Wahhabism is a false reinvention where it says, for example, Christians are no longer people of the book because they believe they're polytheists, where the Trinity has no longer become God. There are things that are Wahhabi that if we don't start to write other books, our kids are going to be
It is not fair to talk about Wahhabis here with people who don't understand what Wahhabis stand for and who they are and how they became to the picture.
Right,
I wish we have time.
No, we'll do a session on
but
Wahhabism
throwing these
next
things, exactly.
Let me just say,
This is not enough.
Well, it's not fair. It's not fair for
enough.
Wahhabism to have $80 billion of an industry piping in hate into this country either.
no, that's right. And let me just say, for point of clarification for the last questioner, the U.S. government right now is pressuring Saudi Arabia, and Saudi Arabia is bending some on changing the literature in its textbooks that are being shipped around the world. That is happening even as we speak, which is a good thing. But they're not doing quick enough. Yes, ma'am, you're next. Why don't you bring the mic down to your
Yes,
mouth?
I know, I'm up like this. I hope that I can get one-third of the stuff that has run through my mind and the questions and statements that have come throughout this debate here. For one, I want to say I'm very, very happy that I was born in America, very, very happy to be in America. And as I'm sure Dr. Jasser is, as he stated, and also Mohamed. However, I wonder if Dr. Jasser realizes that it's not only Muslims in those countries out there that are blowing up themselves and killing innocent people. Does he not realize that Americans kill innocent people constantly? They've done this throughout their history also. I'm an example standing here, look at me. They have killed innocent people throughout this country's history. That doesn't mean that I hate America, that I'm afraid of America. I think a lot of things that go on here are fear. A lot of fear is injected from the TV, the media. I mean, if I looked at it and I didn't know a little bit more than what I know, I would be afraid of everybody.
So the question is?
The question is, don't they realize that
Everybody's bad.
every country has killed innocent people? That there are 4,000 American men that have been killed in Iraq and 40,000 Iraqians. I mean, you know.
Question.
How many?
40,000.
Say a couple of minutes.
665.
Well, I think we have a question on the floor, and I'd like for them to answer.
They were on the lake.
Hold it, ladies and gentlemen, the discussion is right here and out there. Ma'am, you're going to be next.
Delivered
Let me get
from
them to answer
America.
that. I want them to answer that statement. Doctor?
As a naval officer, I take quite offense at somebody that believes that our officers and our enlisted are out there killing innocent people intentionally. Ma'am,
never happens? Is that what you're saying?
listen, I would like to be able to answer your
I know what
question.
you say. You take offense. You mean it doesn't matter? I mean,
In Islam-
taking offense doesn't mean anything. Are you saying it doesn't matter? But
It doesn't,
it
no,
didn't happen.
you know what? No, it doesn't happen because the moral equivalency. Let me answer your question.
Doesn't happen. Okay.
Let me answer your question. The moral equivalency you're talking about, there's a big difference in Islam. When we talk about qiyas or measurement of comparison, there's a big difference between a barbarian taking an airplane into innocent people that are not fighting a war versus officers that I know that are pilots that may have an intention not to hurt anybody. That part of war is collateral damage. And you know for a fact that there is a big difference in Islam in intentions and what you intend to do and what you don't. You can believe the Arab Islamist media as much as you want. Al Jazeera talked about chemical weapons and all these kind of things. That's all fabrication. And I have served. I'm not sure that you've served in the military. You may have. But all I can tell you is from personal experience, I have never met an American soldier that intentionally hurt innocent people.
And killed women and children in the bedroom, in their bed, hiding under the blanket, and wiped them out.
By the way, if
What
you
do think
believe,
of
if you
the
believe that's
Israeli
true,
soldier at a checkpoint who let a woman who was trying to get to the hospital to deliver her twins for her to have miscarriage right there, and he said, "This is too less terrorists to be born." How do you explain that?
Let him answer, and then this woman's been waiting patiently.
if you believe that anecdote to be true, and you believe that,
Absolutely, it is documented too.
and you
It's
believe that's
documented by Americans.
so that anecdote becomes a moral guidance. You're actually doing the exact same thing that upsets you about what people say about Muslims. Is you're taking one act and making it into a generalization upon the entire community, military community. You are committing the exact same type of fear-mongering that you say you don't like.
Ladies and gentlemen, cross-examination lasted a while ago. We'll come back. Let's let this lady get in. But we don't mind being live. Go ahead, man. Keep it live.
I too am happy to be an American and born in America, but I'm very concerned about my country, and I'm very concerned about the situation we're facing here and now. I thought that the title for this debate was to be, is the establishment of an Islamic State a clear ideological threat to the United States of America? I certainly hope we don't have that kind of ideological threat. I would like to ask Mr. Imam if you would just tell us in simple language whether you believe we should have an Islamic State in America. And then after you answer, I would like to ask you the same thing. It's a simple question.
Ma'am, I've been a citizen of the United States for 21 years. I took an oath to defend the Constitution of the United States. There is nothing in the United States Constitution contradicts my faith and my Islam. Therefore, I will embrace it till the end.
Thank you. And you?
Didn't answer the question.
I believe
Dr.
that the best
Jasser?
form of government in the entire planet is one governed by ours, like the U.S. Constitution. And even if I was a majority as Muslims, if we went to an island, this is the question I'd like to see the Imam answer. If he and another 100 Muslims went and formed a new government of Muslims,
Say a Mortal Island or something?
some island, uninhabited, where they have a blank slate of a constitution, what would they use? Would it be this constitution, or would they form a new one, a so-called
So
Islamic
we
state?
all agree in this room that we do not want Sharia law governing the United States of America. Is that so?
Yeah.
Good.
We Muslims, we have
Thank
a
you.
problem.
Now, I have a question.
Well, wait, you just
Would-
had, okay, you got a second question?
Yes, I do. I think I waited in line
Well, you
long
did a
enough.
great job of being concise, so you go ahead.
Thank you. I would like each of you to comment just a tiny bit on
Ijtihad.
Ijtihad. Thank you. Ijtihad.
Jihad.
Oh,
No,
jihad.
no, not on jihad,
Good.
on ijtihad.
Well, it's the
Thank you.
Okay, no,
Ijtihad.
Ijtihad or is the shahad?
Ijtihad.
Ijtihad.
What is it?
Ijtihad, or the critical interpretation of scripture in light of modern day.
Right.
Thank you. Everyone get that? You know the definition? Go ahead. Mohammed, you go first,
Myself?
and then go for the comment.
Well, I would be proud to say Islam is the first ideology, the first system ever offered a constitution to human being to live by, and mechanism called ijtihad, the ability to deduct new rules, to adapt to new situations in it.
Yes. And Dr. Jeff?
I think that this is what's been missing, and really what our forum is trying to do is reawaken the doors of ijtihad, which were shut down by the Ottoman government hundreds and hundreds of years ago. And I think that it is important that imams like Mr. Al-Darsani and others acknowledge that there isn't any ijtihad going on, and that part of the ijtihad is going to have to be an acknowledgement that the Prophet's example is something we follow by behavior but not by government. And that until they can actually say that, you need to do ijtihad, because we can sit and talk about things that may make you all feel good, but the books on the shelf don't say this about government as
But
far as
there
Muslim
is
government.
ijtihad going on right now.
Absolutely, yes.
Yes.
Not as much as it should be, though.
And that means for us that Islam is trying to change to accommodate to the new needs of our new world.
Muslim.
I think a great learning
Muslim.
experience is needed. It's a very complex subject.
Ma'am, if you could,
Prejudice-
Man, you should have your own TV. Thank you.
I know.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Good evening, everyone.
yes, sir.
Raise the mic.
You're gonna hurt your back, sir. Go ahead.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Good evening, everyone. I'm very proud to be American, and I've traveled a lot. I've seen a whole lot of countries, and I think this is the best country on the planet, and I really am very proud of this country. My question is for Dr. Jasser. Do you think educating Americans about Islam can also help the West bring East together? Because there are a lot of things which Americans don't know, like the sentiments of the Muslims. For example, drawing the caricature of Prophet Muhammad, which hurts the sentiments of Muslims, which they don't realize how important it is for Muslims,
I think that's a good question, and the way I put it, and if you look at our website, one of our principles that our forum does is to educate about the special relationship in Islam between Judaism and Christianity especially, and some of the history of Islam that actually a lot of the Greek philosophy works would not even exist in the West had they not been translated to Arabic first and then into English, etc. So there's a lot of vibrant history there. The problem is that Americans are smart. They can tell people that are in denial versus those that understand the positives and the negatives. And you have to be fair when you present these things. And when you talk about Islam and its history, we have to put it in context, but we also have to say, well, here's where it needs to be updated, and here's where it has fallen short according to Western standards. And I would end by saying that your question, the bigger question I think for tonight is, does Islam have to get closer to modernity or should modernity get closer to Islam? And my sense is that Muslims need to be updated to modernity, because to say that the Islamic construct is perfect may be true in my home. We write my marriage document, my last will and testament, etc. I follow my personal Sharia, but governmental Sharia, I think, is a failure. And the West has proven that theocracies are failures. Secular liberal democracies are economic and intellectual successes.
And also good for religion.
Yes, and actually, that would be piety is the greatest in those governments.
You just said that Americans are very intelligent. I agree with you 100%. There's no doubt about it. But a lot of my friends, they don't have any knowledge about the geography, about the history of the world. It's very important to know in order to study the culture too. Like you said, I agree with you 100%. But the thing is, it's mutual. It's like mutual understanding of the problem.
I do want to add one thing, because you mentioned the cartoons and the Muslim reaction to it. I think that one of the things I teach my children, my son who's 6, is not to respond to provocation. That's like one of the first things that you teach children as far as impulse control. So this is the issue, is that we don't have a right not to be offended. There's no such a thing in Western society. People can say, and actually if you look at the Prophet's example, there were even much worse. He was called the Antichrist, Satan, all the kind of things, and he didn't say anything about that. He just let his ideas speak for themselves. So I think we need to fix our own house and stop being offended by so many things before we start wanting to educate people about what offended.
We have about 5 more minutes, and I want to get these other people in, so if you can just be brief, please.
I'll be very brief. He brought an example. Rational Muslims should not react as you hope the reaction, but those reactions came from who? Manipulated, uneducated people, just as we are seeing today in this room. You are not educated enough about Islam, about the issues Muslims are facing, or the Sharia of Islam, or the Muslims in America, unfortunately. You really aren't. You're listening to one side of the story. I was against those people who did damages to other people's properties and went in the streets screaming against the West for these caricatures. Because the Prophet himself would say, ignore them. Basically, ignore them, because we know who we are. Same thing we should say here. Instead of the rhetorics, we are listening. Let's hear the other side. This is your opportunity to meet with us. We are your neighbors. You cannot escape us anymore. We're your doctors. We're your engineers, your accountants, your friends in schools and everywhere. Come to know us. Know where we are coming from. And know we will protect this constitution and this country with more passion than you do. Because our Prophet told us, loving your homeland is part of your faith. This is our homeland today, my friend. We should love it.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to get some more questions in, but we need to stop for 30 seconds for the tape. So, sir, if you could hold. In fact,